Ready to go.
Yeah.
Okay, right. We're meeting to order, everyone. Thank you for joining. There is a lot to get through, some fairly heavy documents, so we'll push through as quickly as we can, particularly on the early documents. So first item, Daniel, have we received any apologies for tonight, please?
We've received apologies from Councillor Ellis, but we haven't got from Councillor Ponchek or Councillor Ray.
Okay. Possibly they'll show. Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough. Any declarations of interest that councillors would like to make before we continue? Very good. Chair's report and urgent items.
Nothing received, Chair.
Thank you. Have we received any public questions?
No, Chair.
Thank you very much. Right, so jump into item 5, which is the minutes from the meeting from 6th of November. Thank you for preparing these, Daniel. Do we have any questions or comments on these minutes?
No.
Can we resolve to accept the minutes, please? Thank you very much.
To sign, Chair.
Yes, of course. Okay, so Daniel, would you like to take us through the forward plan and resolution tracker, please?
Yes, Chair, thank you. So I can report that everything on the resolution tracker from our last meeting has been successfully completed. The committee may just wish to note that of the on the community grant that was issued last month to Bethany Church, we've paid them the £1,500 that was agreed, and they've confirmed that unfortunately they haven't had the time to purchase the equipment that was agreed in by the end of March. Table tennis table.
Yeah.
Further questions?
Any comments or questions from the councillors on the resolution tracker from the panel? Okay, could we see a vote, show of hands to approve both documents, please? Thank you very much, everybody. Very good. Okay, Daniel, can you tell us through the next is the budget update, please?
Yeah, so this is the budgetary control, which reflects the financial position up to the end of November of last year. In Appendix B on page 13, we're currently showing a favourable variance of £59,000 year to date. There aren't any new material variances to report on. The main variances remain the same as what was discussed last meeting, which is highlighted in paragraph 1.12. But I have to say for a question.
Any comments or questions from the councillors, please?
I did have questions, but I put those in an email to Dan because I didn't know if it was me, again, as a not an accountancy person, not understanding in comparison to what was going on last year. I compared the two to see where we were, and some of the headings were identical and some of them weren't. So I just put that question to Daniel, and you've kindly answered that. So I just thank you for that.
No problem.
Are you satisfied with the responses that you see?
Yeah.
I don't have any questions. Any points you particularly like to highlight, Daniel?
No, it's just the same reasons as we discussed in November.
Staffing and interest rates are good.
Yep.
Very good. Okay, so if I may ask the councillors here, please, to just vote to note the report and noting the release of the reserves. Thank you. Right, so the next item is the 25-26 budget. So,
Thank you, Chair. So we've been through the budget a couple of times already. This is the version that we're proposing goes to council at the end of the month for final approval. So this budget, the budget has to be approved by the end of January, so we can let districts know the figures so they can put it towards their calculations, and then work out the communication for council tax bills and things like that. So that's why we need to do it by the end of January. So on table 15, the table on page 15, that explains the national insurance variance that we discussed at our meeting, before part of the report due to the timing of the announcement from central government. The Albans District Council have confirmed that the council tax base is going to increase by just over 59 to 14,631.8. So with these changes, they've meant the precept increase is now 7.67%, which is lower than the 8.2 that was discussed at one point. But all of the budget variances between this financial year and next financial year are shown in Appendix B on page 21. So the main items being the employee costs, the pay award that was approved, the increase in running costs, which is primarily of buildings, which relates to the storage depot and Hampstead Park, and just general contract inflation. Obviously, I know there's a lot of numbers there, but I'll pause and have to take any questions.
And I've noticed that last year's budget, after revise, we have a favorable variance in terms of employee costs and also the town ranger costs. And this year you're saying that we will have more costs rather than less costs
As in the
employee, yeah.
yeah. So there is a vacant post at the minute, but works is ongoing about filling that post and potentially changes within the town ranger team. So it is a favourable variance this year, but it's likely to be a one-off. And once the team changes in the new financial year, that vacant post will be filled.
So any surplus from this financial year, does that go into the general reserve?
Not necessarily. We can make that decision when it comes to June. There may be, as long as there's specific. So I suppose first of all, as long as we're happy with the level of general reserve, which we are, then we can review that again, make sure we are happy with it, and then anything remaining, if there's a specific project, we can allocate some funds to an earmarked reserve. But yeah, that's the key, that it has to be for a specific project. We can't create a rainy day fund, if you like, just in case there might be something that comes up that we might want to spend it on. It has to be specific.
Questions and comments from the councillors, please.
I did have some questions, and it may be that you've answered them in the email that I sent. So in last year's papers, so at page 18, this year's papers, we've got 8.3 as of April 24, the capital receipts stood at 1.6, down from 1.9. And then in the last year's, it says the council currently has, and it told us what that figure was, and that's not in this one. So I wondered whether you.
Yeah, okay.
That.
Yeah, okay. I haven't got those figures as part of this, but I can certainly provide that. It's kind of, it's almost the figure that we've got on page 13. So towards the so in the small writing at the bottom, sorry, you've got contribution from to earmark reserve at 65,000 and contribution to from capital receipts reserve at 354,000. So that's how much has been spent on those reserves so far.
Spent. Okay.
So for the capital reserve, so we've gone from 1.6 to say 1.2, 1.3, is it? Will be remaining at the minute.
1.3 remaining.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
It started, so 1st of April it's 1.6. We've spent 354 and well, almost
Yeah.
355,000. That will bring us down to the state. This would come down to that's going to.
So it's just that 1.6 million less than 354. So that total figure isn't shown in these reports.
Right. Okay. All right. Okay, but that's fine. So we know where we started at 1st of April. The accounts go from April to November. So we start there and we make that adjustment. Okay.
But I can certainly add that detail into the report that goes to council just for.
It's just to make it consistent, I
Yeah.
suppose, with what we're used to receiving.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
suppose.
no, it's fine.
And then just a question generally, so 9.3 on the same page. So in 2002, we had 324,485. Then in 2023, we had 350. This year it's gone down to 328,949. So is that something that happens? It sort of goes like that. So each year it goes up and down.
Potentially, yes. So
Right.
there's always in and out of the earmark reserve normally, because as we spend the money, obviously it reduces, but then as we're in a favourable position at the moment, if that continues next year, then we might be in a position where the net of the earmark reserve, we're adding to it, but there's always a case of we're going to be spending money out of it as projects are completed. But
Yeah.
if there is money left over at the end of the year, we'll be able to add to it for different projects.
Okay. So it could go up or it could go down.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily the trend.
No.
Yeah. Okay.
So, Chair, just to add to that, so the only way it can go up is if at the end of a financial year there is a surplus, and instead of some of that surplus going into general reserve, it's earmarked for something.
Yeah.
That's the only way it
Oh, I
goes up.
see. Yeah.
So the difference between 22 and 23
Yeah.
would be at the end of that 22 financial year, there would have been a surplus, some of which we would have put into earmark reserves. And it's not just for projects, it's for works, improvements, asset maintenance, things like that.
Yeah.
So that's the only way in which it can go up, unless you get some other external funding from elsewhere to do something, then that becomes an earmark reserve as well.
Okay. The general fund for this year, sorry, I think this might be my last one on this page. So that is exactly the same, literally to the pound,
Yes.
and that's deliberate, is it? You just keep it at that sum.
So June last year, when we had the full picture of year end, we were comfortable with the amount that's in the general reserve, because it's the things we always consider with the general reserve. Once it's put in the general reserve, you need to have a good case for taking it out.
Yes. Yeah.
I think I'm comfortable with the amount that we've got there.
Okay.
And again, Chair, just to add a good context to that. So the only time we've really gone into the general reserve, the main one was around COVID, actually. So we had £150,000 budget gap as a result of a loss of commercial income. So at that point, there was an amount from the general reserve that was utilised to cover that, with a view to then building it back up in sort of successive years.
Okay.
So that's probably the most recent example of utilising general reserves, which in theory that's what it's there to do.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments, please?
No.
Let's have a couple of very minor sort of gone through. So just on the 5 to the employee costs, so you said the pay award was 3.88, but then was revised to 5%. Was that a national revision to the national?
No, so that with the pay award, the pay award for this year was agreed at slightly different amounts to what was budgeted.
Yes.
So that's the change. 3.88, that's what was agreed this year, and then the 5% is what we're budgeting for next year. So it's
like an expectation.
Yeah,
of what we think might happen in the future.
that's our best guess, based on what you kind of read in the media and how things are looking. That's our best guess.
All right, no.
You can guarantee it'll be wrong, but
Yeah,
That's the only thing.
no, that's fine. And I think we should be prudent on that. Okay. what else? Okay, just for some of our contract costs, including, I think we have some contract arrangements with SADC. So we've been through all of the contracts and we've looked at inflation provisions within the contract, and we've used those to sort of do a bottom-up calculation what we think is spending next year. Okay. That's fine. So I've asked this question a little bit gently, but in terms of the fees that we charge for these of our premises, so what sort of increases have we considered for the next couple of years?
I think it's always a fine line, Chair, between increasing the fees and charges and making sure that we're still competitive.
Yeah.
So I think with Park Hall, it was a couple of years ago, we increased the higher charge there, and it worked well where we didn't lose too many customers. But it's always that thing with Park Hall that where it's a very good venue and people like it. It's kind of, I think, am I right to say it's kind of classed as like the higher end establishment for hire around. So we could justify that increase and we didn't lose too many customers. I think there's other fees that they're always reviewed, but again, it's that thing like with the farmers market, the stall hire. We want to encourage people to come and try and cover it. It's not designed to be a profit making exercise. We're trying to cover our costs best we can, but we want as many stall holders to come and to give us a nice, varied, vibrant market. So we've always got that in mind between sort of community and commercial, if you like.
Exactly. That's what I wanted to be doing on this. We shouldn't be aggressive in my personal view. We need to be fair, but we need to cover our costs and to be economic as well. Okay, that looks fine. Just on 7.1, so you've got 3 of these items are highlighted. I wasn't quite sure which ones.
That's just subheadings, Chair, sorry. So,
right.
Houser Gardens down, they're all classed as playing fields, open spaces and halls.
Then you've got local car parks. The cemetery's not car parks.
So,
above.
so the ones above, so
The
Cravels Road, Markris,
Head.
Southend.
Oh, right. So it's like it's related to the items above.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's back to front. It's just the way that the district reduce it.
It's like a total.
Of course it is. While you're on that, because rather than dotting about, I did have a question. What are we still paying for then for the halls? Because that's, isn't it? It's closed and we're not getting anything out of that, so as far as I know.
Yeah, so I guess the question when you say what are we still paying for, you mean as a Harpenden resident?
But in terms of the special expenses.
Yeah, so
specifically under this heading, we've got things that we are still paying for.
yeah, so Harpenden residents pay for as part of the district council tax. So the way that the special expense works is that these are things that the district council deliver, and it's special expense in all areas of the district. So that if there's a big expense over in London Colney that's only relevant to London Colney, you don't pay for it over in Harpenden.
Oh.
So on the council tax bill, on your St Albans district council element of your council tax bill, there'll be things that you pay for in your Harpenden, if you're a Harpenden resident, that you won't pay for if you're a London Colney and vice versa. So this is the list of things that are still special expensed in Harpenden.
Yeah.
So this list has gone down significantly over the years because we've devolved a lot of the assets that were on it. So what's happened is when we devolve an asset from the district council, in theory, the special expense at their end is supposed to disappear. So the Harpenden resident isn't paying for it at that end. And then we increase our precept by an equal amount so that there's a kind of a 0% change for that particular asset. So I don't know if we've got the actual figures associated to these.
No.
We could probably dig them out from the district council's finance reports because they will be in there because it's quite interesting. They're not huge amounts, but we'll be able to see as to how much, if any, Harpenden residents specifically are being charged for the public halls as an example. It should be 0 in theory. But we can have a look at that. So yeah, that list is the things that the district council still owns, and any expenditure for that is given or transferred directly to Harpenden residents through their council tax, and nothing to do with the town council
Okay.
as such.
So so I don't want to undermine what you're saying at all, but do we need to find out what those figures are? Because that's a lot of work for Dan, because their accounts are totally impenetrable.
Yeah, so there's a document that just sets it out actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
And I
Okay.
mean, in many ways, it's an item of interest to us. It has no impact on our budget, but it's just as councillors, you will find it interesting just to see what is being recharged potentially and how
Yeah.
much that is,
Okay.
potentially versus how much is being spent on those. They are fairly low amounts actually on this set of special expenses.
Okay.
If
So
you-
what are they doing on Outsea Gardens?
So Outsea Gardens is the green sort of swathe that runs through it.
Oh, right.
So
okay.
essentially, those bits of public realm are still
Yeah.
district council owned.
Right.
So if they're cutting it 4 times a year and it costs £1,000,
Yeah.
it won't cost that much, but that £1,000 will
Yeah.
be split across the council tax.
So it's cutting the grass.
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
UDF does.
Not
Yeah.
on verges. So all those green spaces, are sort of bits of green space in and around residential development. Derwent Road is probably, and Crabtree Lane are probably the biggest ones. Derwent is one that the town council's never had an interest in. Crabtree Lane potentially may be one that we may be interested in devolving as part of our Green Loop initiative down the line. So that's what they are. They're some sort of random bits of green space that you'll see in
Is that the
places.
one with the scout hut on?
Yes, it is. Yeah, yeah. So
And the car parks, I've never used these car parks.
Mm.
Do we pay for those car parks? I think, is it they're free car parks, are they?
yeah, they're all free car.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, so in theory, the special expense, that's why they're special expense. Because
Fine, yeah, I was just
because
checking,
they're
yeah.
free. So there'll be relatively low figures on the special expense.
Yeah.
Frankly, because they don't invest much in them, so there isn't much expenditure.
Yeah.
But if in theory there was, I don't know, a wall collapsed in one of them and it cost £80,000, that would be added on to the Harpenden resident
Yes,
element of the council tax.
Yeah. okay,
Um,
got it.
So they say district, they've got the regular costs of they've still got to pay business rates, even though it's a free car park. So they've still got those costs that they'll have to pay.
Yeah.
For.
So, Chair, if you're interested, I mean, it's slightly adjacent to that. So, if you consider the unparished area of St Albans, then there is an awful lot of expenditure that is made by the district council for the unparished area, which is potentially covered by the rest of the district. So, for example, if you've got officers in the district council who are doing things in and around the unparished area, that is completely funded through the district council. That isn't reapportioned to necessarily directly to the unparished area. There are some things through the City Neighbourhoods Committee. So there is that's always been one of the arguments around the unparished area of St Albans and how it potentially presents a bit of an unfair situation in regards to the wider district.
So is that land that the district council maintain, is that owned by the district council, or is it just that they own it?
Yeah.
So if you wanted to put anything on it, you'd have to get the district council.
Yeah.
Well, no, it was just the area, it's next to Alderby Crescent, the land going that way by Willow Court. Somebody was talking about children's play area there. But then who's to pay for the
If you go up and round to where the bowling is.
No.
Oh, okay. Where you did your Christmas cards with the scouts? Is it up there?
Yeah, but not when you get to there. So it's more, so the school that's just there. So like Willow Court, and then you've got High Beach. Is it High Beaches? High Beaches.
Oh.
And there's, so somebody was discussing, you know.
There is a fair amount of small green space
Yeah,
around Harpenden that is unregistered actually. Even though you find strange anomalies at times where someone inquires about a bit of a land and we know it's not ours, and you do a search and it comes up unregistered. District Council back in about 2010 carried out an exercise where they registered a whole load of unregistered land. For whatever reason, I'm not sure why. But yeah, there is these sort of pockets.
In the, under the
Yeah, they did. Yeah, it is. So one bit that's really useful actually was off Cross Lane. So you know that strip that was crucial to the potential development. So that used to be unregistered land, and the district registered that, which meant no one else could make claim on it.
Then he got,
right, so I just have one more question. The parking sort of enforcement services for Liddicote car park. So I guess the question is what raise are you expecting this coming year? I'll trade very gently here, but do we think we're getting value for money from that service?
pretty much.
So the target and the fees aren't, you're not planning a change, so that's still 50,000 for the year. God didn't make money for the service. I think it's always questionable with the amount of aid, but it's personally, it's more what other people have told me. I've not seen it firsthand, but with like the level of enforcement there isn't.
Well, that's quite a significant amount of money. I think 50,000. Yeah, I'm just wondering whether we get the performance reports back and say, right, we've done so many visits in a week, in a month. How many tickets have been handed out, and just to get a sense of, look, it costs us so much to run the car park. We pay so much, not unreasonably, to pay SADC to extend their enforcement services. It's just a sort of cost benefit analysis.
Yeah. So to be clear, Chair, the £50,000 our income. That's not what we pay them. We pay them about.
That's how much.
Yeah,
How much?
Is it 50? Yeah, less than that.
Yeah, so I think given we're recorded, the best way to answer that is to say that clearly there's a lot of stuff going on about parking policy at the moment, and once some of that gets to the next stage of around what happens, the town council needs to review its own approach to car parks, I think, and as part of that, we'll be doing a formal review about enforcement, fees, charges, how we want to utilise our car parks. Do we want to continue with the current approach? Do we want to offer something more beneficial to local businesses and things like that? So it's quite a big piece of work. I think it's fair to say enforcement, we continually review what we get and challenge, but there is going to be a big bit of work this year.
Okay, fair enough.
Back of whatever happens next.
It's fine, right. That was the last of my questions on this. So just to recap, any further questions or comments on the on the budgets? Okay, thank you for everyone for your attention to that. So being asked to, I will take this en masse unless people want to break it down. Is everyone happy that we vote more for measures into bottom together? Any objections? No. Okay. So we're being asked to recommend to the full council that A, we set the base budget for the coming year to 2.075 million. Second, precept of 1.68 million 100. Third, council tax base figure is noted, and then we note the medium-term financial strategy. So all those in favour of recommending those points to full council, please raise your hand. Thank you. Very good. Okay, so thank you very much for joining us.
Take care.
Take care. Okay. Daniel, do you want to run us through the next one? It's treasury management and investment strategy.
Thank you, Chair. So as a quick reminder, the current strategy for this financial year was reviewed in November 2023, and this report sets the strategy going forward for the next financial year, 2025-26. So when looking at strategy in Appendix A, there's no major change to the strategy, to the approach. We take a very much low risk, low reward strategy. Our current investments are, we've got the current account with Lloyds, a instant access reserve account that we get 1.1% on, a 32-day reserve account that we get currently at 3.25% on. We've got £200,000 with an organisation called CCLA, which is churches, charities, local authorities where they specialise in our area. The yield on that, it changes, but at the minute it's 5.22%. And the big ticket item that we've got is £1 million with Nationwide that rolls every 3 months, and that's currently invested at 4.54%. And when I looked yesterday, the rates available was 4.46%, but that £1 million investment is due to mature on Friday, so I'll be reinvesting that again on Friday. But obviously, it's a lot of this is about balancing the cash flow. If we're in a position where we can invest more with Nationwide or organisations where we can get higher interest, then we will. But it's always a case of balancing that risk versus reward. We wouldn't do anything outlandish at all because it's public money and you need to be careful with
Not
it.
doing Bitcoin then.
No, it's not something Bitcoin.
I'm teasing.
Very good. Right, it's a very detailed, comprehensive document. Do you have any comments or questions for the councillors, please?
You mentioned the general reserve is like staying there for each year. I'm supposed that except for major events, that general reserve will be like untouched.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm thinking why almost 600,000 of reserve. Couldn't we put it in a longer like maturity things to get higher interest? Because that is almost like being there forever without, hopefully without benefit, especially we should say.
Yeah. I think that's certainly something to consider. We have looked at it in the past with CCLA about the different funds that they offer, and it was the review at the time. We were looking at their property investments, and it was decided that we wouldn't go forward with that. But I know that's certainly something that they'd be keen to do, to have, say, 500,000 as opposed to 200,000 with them. But it's them weighing that up versus kind of, I don't know, say, for me, when I get to the end of March or the end of August, when our cash balances are at its lowest, if it's locked in with an institution, then I can't get it, and it trying to juggle things, and obviously it's then taken into account. I don't want to hold off paying people because we haven't got the cash, and we have to wait until we get the say in September when we get the next lot of precept through from district. So that's the sort of juggling act that I'm considering all the time. But it's certainly worth considering putting, say,
Part of it.
maybe a bigger chunk in a something longer term like CCLA. Unfortunately, with Nationwide, who's the other institution we use a lot more, when I first started, you used to be able to do £500,000 with them. So you could do £500,000 for a year, but then they changed their criteria and it has to be £1 million. And so we haven't got £1 million that we can lock away for a year and not touch. So that's one of the other factors that we're always considering when looking at this.
So they have a minimum balance of £1 million for one of their sort of fixed term savings. Savings. It's not long term, I know.
Deal
Such a
kind of thing. Yeah. So at the minute we put the £1 million in for 3 months at a time because we couldn't put it in for 6 months or a year without
actually. So we can't sort of break it up into. And I think Councillor Tong is a good point. So we couldn't break it up into £500,000 for shorter term and £500,000 for a longer term because the bank requires a minimum of £1 million for each of them.
Just follow up on that. I agree on the minimum requirement, but there's certain other financial institutions that have a lower minimum. But I think you are the expert on it. I'm just like wanting to like keep the idle cash being like earning money.
Yeah.
But by the way, for the 1 million 4.46%, I think for personal banking, you can get like 4.88% or something. So it's not particularly appealing to me. I'm not sure why I have that thought, but I think it's not that appealing.
I see with the investments that we do, obviously it's different to the like personal finance market, I suppose is the first point. But secondly, with the bigger institutions that we would want to place the money with. So, for example, say HSBC is another institution that we could have money with. £1 million to them isn't a big deal. It is to us, but to them it's £1 million. So they're not too bothered about getting £1 million from us. So the rates that they offer aren't particularly competitive. So that's why with sort of with HSBC, with Barclays, NatWest, sort of like, it's not as competitive than
In the way they treat individual person kind of higher priority to being rather than a council's money.
Yeah, okay. It's where you can obviously with like ISAs and other kind of financial instruments like that, you can get a lot higher rates than we can where they're sort of different things. Where it's like,
that's a good observation. Is that because our choices are more constrained by legislation? So we've got a smaller population of institutions that we can invest in. So less supplies, less competition, so the rates are lower. Whereas, as an individual, Calvin, you can invest in a bigger range of institutions. There's more competition, so the rates are higher. So
I think as well, just to add, but having been through it with the Icelandic banking crisis, I think it was all of the lessons learned from that.
Yes.
It was made stricter that where you can and can't invest your money, or where the risks involved in
I think
that.
that's mentioned in one of your sort of policy notes as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree. It's just interesting to me that, for example, HSBC, NatWest, this kind of high street bank, we certainly can invest in those. And today, an individual with probably less money than a council, it's more attractive today than a council.
You can sell other products to them, like bank with them, you can have a credit card, or you can have your mortgage. So they're just constantly selling you different products. I suppose. I did have two questions. So, what happens to the interest then that we're paid? Because if you have to have £1 million for 3 months, have we not earned any interest? Because that £1 million then should be more than £1 million, because we should have interest from our 3 months.
Yeah.
So even if it was £1 million and that's £5, then it should be more than.
So the way they always want to deal with it is, so the principal of the £1 million stays the same. So every 3 months we get the interest back, and that's where, when you look at the budgetary control, where we've exceeded the target and we've got that favourable variance of 58,000 at the minute, a big chunk of that is because we've received that interest from
So it
people.
doesn't go on that capital sum to reinvest it.
No.
Okay.
So we get the interest back, but the £1 million stays.
Right.
So it comes onto our that's a good point. So it comes back onto our income statement, and which is there in terms of somebody, and if it's not spent, it goes back into it contributes towards our surplus, which then goes into either our earmarks or our general reserve. Is that correct?
Yeah.
That's where it ends up.
And the next point I was going to make is that people with money worry about these sorts of issues, and people that don't have money. And so you could go onto the street and ask everybody, how much do you think that the council have got in the bank? And they would be, I feel, genuinely stunned that we have that much sitting there, when arguably, potentially, there's a lot of good that we could do with that much money. I'm not saying that we should agree to spend it all or anything silly like that, but when we're talking about possibly not having floral displays on the streets to make it nice, or we're not able to, buy the hopper a new minibus because we feel that's too much, and we're not able to do X, Y, and Z, or buy our own Christmas decorations, or replace mats for safety reasons, all of those little things that we read about in our reports. I feel that is quite incongruous to me that we're discussing huge sums of money and where we're investing them, because ultimately we're not a business. We don't have bonus schemes. No one's getting rewarded for us having money sat in a bank. What we are rewarded for and what our job is, I see it as making Harpenden better for everybody. And I don't think money sat in a bank makes anything better for anybody. So sorry, if it's a little bit soapboxing, I didn't really mean it to be at all, but I just don't see that it's necessary to invest. Well, I mean, we obviously we're going to invest it because we want to make the best of everybody's money, but I do think we all need to start thinking about ways to spend that.
Well, look, is the question, why do we keep so much? Kind of.
I mean, I get the
Covered.
general reserve, you know, I
Yeah, but
understand,
why
you know,
do we have so
the
much in?
earmarks and the process and, you know, having.
I do have a slightly different perspective, because if not because of that, we have that money, we won't generate the interest income that generate a positive, favorable income statement that pay for our continual improvement of service that come out from the original like base that we can, if we consume the base, then it will affect the like monthly or quarterly interest income. So that have to strike a balance. That's always, even personally, I always put the point that is have to be like generate like basic income so that you can like do whatever you want. And then I think what Daniel is trying to do is like put money in a more conservative way and at the same time generate income that can sustain about our.
So why do we keep this? There's 2 million here. Why do we keep that kind of in a cupboard?
So we're going back to the beginning, we're in a very fortunate position as a town council where we sold the former like allotment site to create the housing that generated the big capital receipt that we've got. So the first point is with that 2 point whatever it was million that we received for that land, that was put into the capital receipts reserve that we spoke about earlier, and that money has to be spent on big capital items. It can't be spent on day-to-day maintenance. So just make that point. A lot of the money has been spent, and a lot of that money has been allocated as well. I haven't got that appendix as part of these papers, but where you've got things like the pavilion in Northampton Park, so you've got, I think it's like 400,000 is allocated to that. Just trying to think of the big ticket items that we've got.
So what for 2 million here? How much of that is?
Yeah, that's coming.
If we've got 2 million here in savings accounts, how much of that would you say is allocated to
I
big?
think there's only about, in the capital, I think off the top of my head, I think there's about 150 that's unallocated, I believe. But
Of this 2 million?
yeah.
Well, we kind of know that because it's in the budget report, because we know what the reserves are, and we have a general reserve, which is, I think is like the rainy day fund.
Yeah.
An earmarked reserve, which is
590 is what we've got in our stock drawer.
we've got an earmarked reserve, which is literally earmarked for projects that we've agreed. So that's,
Yeah,
and then we've got
Those are the ones that Daniel's talking about, though.
and then we've got the capital reserve
Yeah.
where we've had receipts from Westfield where we have legal restrictions on the spend. I mean, it's a good question. I mean, I would probably add a couple of other points. One is that, you know, we had COVID, so that put a big dent in our revenues. So the fact we had a strong balance sheet allowed us to ride out COVID, which could have lasted longer. Who knows how long that could have gone on for. So that was to keep the show on the roads during a very, very difficult time in every sense. Local government policy is changing. We know that Labour submitted a white paper, so who knows what financial and governance arrangements and responsibilities we'll have in the next couple of years. But I guess the final point will be, it comes back to the business plan. I mean, we can spend the money, but it has to have a purpose. So I think if it comes from the business plan, and we all have a vote to say in the business plan. And if it goes towards delivery of the objectives in the business plan, then I think it makes sense. But I think when I would take the view that it's also important to be prudent and to run a stable operation.
I don't think anyone's saying we shouldn't be.
Well, let's just make sure we can say that. So
It's not for a moment
it's not-
saying we should
it's
spend
not
2
only
million
that.
quid on parties and picnics, like
No.
Yeah.
but you know, genuinely not, you know, obviously, but the examples that I gave are live ones that
Mm.
we will be asked to think about in
Yeah.
due course.
I think as we go through the business plan and things like the depots purchased and the pavilions built and things like that, obviously the amount that I can invest will reduce and reduce, and there won't be the £1 million investment with Nationwide, and we'll be back to just dealing with Lloyd's pretty much and the
Yeah.
different
Mm.
accounts that they've got. So in a year or two, I think we'll be in that situation because the majority of those funds will be spent. There may not be a capital reserve left. If all the projects are completed, then there just won't be that money there anymore.
Yeah. Okay.
That sounds from one end to the other end. Originally, we're too happy.
Yeah.
Now, 2 years later, we'll be too worried.
You can rely on me to bring the mood down.
Yeah. Got 2 years to find some more allotments.
Hearing from Daniel said a lot of the money is actually like have to be specific to capital and earmark reserve. So there's not really much we can left for spending. But for those urgent things, we still should find a way to make it a better happening.
Yeah. I think so. Sorry.
Very good questions. Thank you. So you mentioned that this was you had not made many amendments since the previous version. Are there any specific revisions that you want to highlight, councillors?
No, I think the main one was just the main table that's changed is just the kind of best guess on page 27, paragraph 3.3, just where I think will be in April, and where I think the March 26.
Not easy to do.
So I see it.
So I mean, I'm sure everyone has, but I mean, I've read through the whole document, and then there's the attached notes as well. I mean, I think personally, I do think it is a prudent account that keeps us in a strong financial position. Shocks do happen, as we've seen in the last 2 or 3 years. There is local government reform coming up. We know in this Parliament, government will be submitting a white paper. So I think it's going
Do
to be
you think that can go both ways though? Because it is impressive to have a good business that's running in Harpenden, and we're all doing a good job of keeping us afloat financially. But if they go, oh well, they're doing really well, they don't need any more money, they'll just shrink us. I don't know. I think it could go both ways.
possible. Okay, so just to recap, any further comments or questions
No.
on the paper, please? Okay, so the ask is we're being asked to consider and approve this treasury management investment strategy. So all those in favour of approving, please raise your hands. Thank you very much. Thank you. So the next item, I think, is what, page 45, the internal control and audit, please.
Yeah. So there were no material changes to the arrangements. It's just the chance for councillors to review documents. I guess the main change to highlight is regarding the fidelity guarantee insurance. So that's put in place in the event that, I'm not quite sure how to word it properly, if I was to commit fraud and take everything we've got and disappear, then the council would be covered by the insurance company on that if I was to commit some major fraud and run off with everything. So the cover last year was at £4 million because of the balances we had, but as we've spent money and projects are completed, we can now reduce that level to £3 million because based on our cash flow, our cash balances aren't going to be above the £3 million mark over the next financial year. So just
So
to,
that does only cover cash flow and liquid cash,
yes,
not the assets that we've bought with our cash.
yeah. So there's a different insurances for,
Yeah.
for that. So
Yeah,
for
so
that,
they're all covered.
yeah,
in
yeah,
a different
they're covered
policy.
separately, but this is just about the specifically about
So
the
essentially, it's a council officer stealing money from our accounts.
Yeah.
And disappearing.
Yeah.
And the thinking is because the peak cash balance was previously 4 million, we insured 4 million, but now our forecast is the peak cash balance would be 3.
Yeah.
It only makes sense to insure 3.
Yeah, exactly.
Seems to make sense to me. Just out of interest, what was the cost? Is there any material cost saving in the premium?
Not particularly. They the way the insurance company provide the insurance, they call it the council guard policy. So there's lots of different policies like the public liability and employee liability. It's all kind of merged into one. I think my best guess would be that this is about the premium's probably about £1,200 a year, I think, for this. So I don't think we're going to see a material reduction. Certainly not with all the way insurance it's been going over the last couple of years. So unfortunately, I don't think there's going to be a big saving as a result of this. But
Something like car insurance, is no.
yeah,
Exactly.
So the 58 that we've made, the figure that Calvin mentioned, we've basically just spent on insurance policies. How depressing is that?
It's a bit too high. I just mentioned that it's quite high for the insurance premium. I know we have to buy it, but it's something that we didn't use it, and fidelity guarantee is like they didn't guarantee you as well. So
I think with this sort of insurance, obviously, when it comes to looking at the risk of things and things like that, it'd be embarrassing for the council if the worst did happen. And I guess this is all like worst case scenario stuff. But if all of a sudden all the money disappeared, then we need to show that we've looked at that as a risk and tried to protect ourselves as a.
it's just for my lack of knowledge. Why can't the central government take all these kinds of money and then guarantee each individual council to plug the shortfall of the whatever? It's like 60,000, and they can guarantee it in each year. They take 60,000. Since we have to pay it anyway, so whether paying it to them or paying it to the fidelity makes no difference, and their guarantee gives you some comfort, right?
Depends if you trust the British government.
Ring fencing.
Exactly. Fine, they've
Would
spent.
they pay out?
I guess this the 58 is everything we've got insured. So there's like the public liability, employee liability. We've got to insure if there was. Sorry, I'm going to bring the mood down again. If there was a death in service and those pension costs have to be paid, then there's loads of different policies. The fidelity guarantee is a small part of, very small part.
We have thousands of people on our premises every week. And any one of them could, they could be hit by a falling tree branch or fall down or fall into a pond or something. So it's, okay. Right. So, any further comments or questions? Team, please. Thank you very much. Okay, so right, we'll be asked to approve the attached review and the revision. You said it would remain at 3 million, did you?
Oh, sorry, apologies, Chair.
To reduce to 3 million.
Sorry.
And we're going to change the fidelity insurance to £3 million. So all of those in favour of approving, please raise your hand. Very much. Very good. Okay, next item is business continuity plan. Which is very detailed and comprehensive. I just want to start, I guess, highlight any material changes from the previous version. First piece.
So there's not really a lot for me to add on this, Chair. It's just so the continuity plan is the document that we'll use if a big event occurred and it's what we'll use to sort of filter down the important information to the right people, and making sure that so for example, one of the detailed documents that I complete, if something was to happen to me, then everyone would know be able to look and know the insurance broker's details, my contact at the bank, the contact at the payroll supplier that we use. So it's that making sure that all that information isn't locked away in people's emails and folders. We've got it in one central place. So, for example, like as well, Heather will do the same thing to make sure we know the contacts for the cleaning company, for the security alarm company, for the boiler service company. It's making sure we've got all that information readily available. With the appendix, there's been obviously been reviewed, but there's no real changes with it.
Comments or questions, please? Okay, so I had a couple. Right, so on the Appendix B, page 60, about ransomware and hacking, just I think I read in the FT this one that the government's going to bring in some provisions that oblige public authorities to notify of the police or whoever it is in the event of an event. So just watch out for that.
Okay.
I guess the other mitigating arrangement is presumably that you just have backup files. So if you get locked out of your data, that's bad enough. But if you haven't made a backup somewhere else, so how do you back up your data?
So our IT contractor, they put a lot of security in place just to give you some peace of mind, which there's lots of grumbles about in the office because you've got to do authentication apps and all things like that every now and then, or things like that. But obviously that's part of how everyone works now. But everything is backed up through Microsoft and Microsoft SharePoint, and is sort of saved in the cloud.
Right.
And so it's always backed up regularly by the IT contractor.
Okay, that's right. So I understand a little bit about how SharePoint works. So essentially, if you have your own computer and it's hacked, unless you have a backup in a separate location, then you're in trouble. But with Microsoft and SharePoint, they've got data centers all over the world. So your data is probably backed up in a compartmentalized area of their data center. It could be somewhere else. So I think that okay, so I'm fine with that. The other point, page 62, if there's an intruder, there's no action here to notify the police. The top item there, intruder. So you got level 1, you contact the alarm company, fine. What is that? So is this the risk the alarm has failed, or there is an actual intruder in the building? I think it's that the alarm has failed.
Yeah.
Right, so it's that the intruder alarm itself has failed. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
As opposed to somebody.
Yeah, not so someone can come in the building share. That's correct. So.
Right. And the other one on page 63, so red staff resignations. So heaven forbid that we lose. But you've got some actions here for the mitigating arrangement. But again, I mean, for the officers, you've got the procedure notes to be kept up to date. Presumably the same applies to Carl, because there'll be certain processes that he's managing, and I'd expect those to be documented to the same standard as the ones that you operate and so on. So is that something we should add as a mitigating? Because all the town council's procedures should be written down, so in the event of anybody leaving, someone else can pick them up and know what we need to do. So if we could just add the procedure notes for Carl's, any processes that Carl manages, or the town clerk manages, should be captured as well, please. For an outsourcing company, I'm a big believer in process documentation. Yep, that was it. Thank you very much. Very good. Any further comments or questions from the councillors, please? Very good. Okay, so just to wrap up, so we're being asked to approve the business continuity plan. There's just one minor change I think I'm adding there, just essentially make sure we document any processes that Carl manages over and above the officers, which hopefully you'll be supportive of. So all those in favour of approving the revised plan, please raise your hand. Thank you very much. Very good. Okay, I think we're on the final item. I thought we'd take a lot longer to get through this, but so rather than everything. Right, we have a grant application from the Harpenden Photographic Society. If you want to that, please, Danny.
Thank you, Chair. So they're a community group focused on photography, offering a social environment for sharing ideas and learning together. Their activities include monthly meetings with guest speakers, an annual exhibition, organising art on the common, supporting town events like Christmas and summer carnivals, and providing photographic support for local clubs and competitions. So the Society aims to diversify its membership and promote its activities more broadly within Harpenden. They have applied for the Community Grant Fund to install gateway access signs in summer 2025, so this year, to attract a wider demographic and increase membership. The grant application was originally put in for £450, but then after speaking to them and getting more concrete costs, it was increased to a maximum of £550 because it was spoke to a supplier to get a more realistic quote. And that will cover the signs and their installation with the design conforming to our criteria. Because if they're going to be going up on our land, then they need to meet our criteria. But obviously, the full applications on in Appendix A. But happy to take any questions.
I asked a supplemental question to Dan through email because we've come across this before, haven't we? When we've looked at companies or charities accounts and they've got money in the bank, and we asked the question, well, why do they need to come to us if they've got money in the bank? And because they're old accounts, I wondered whether that was still in the bank, whether it was earmarked for anything. He responded, didn't you?
Yes.
So,
Yeah, sure. So they've got. So if we're talking round numbers, they've got £10,000 in the bank at the minute. 8,000 of that is allocated to replace their capital equipment. So when they had their monthly meetings, they obviously got very high resolution screens and projectors and things like that that cost a lot of money. So that's what that 8,000 is for. And the remaining 2,000, the idea is as part of the whole kind of application and the future as they see it, with the new advertising and attracting new members. When they have their monthly meetings, they can use that remaining money to attract higher caliber speakers to then attract more members, and hopefully it all flows nicely together. So there'll be advertising for new members and being able to attract them and keep them by better speakers, and then in turn, I guess, more membership and generating more income to make themselves sustainable at that level.
I have a question. I have no idea what a gateway board is.
Just the signs that you see outside. So like we've got the banking hub sign out there at the minute, or when you drive into town, you see the farmers market on this weekend. Just see.
Okay. So they're expecting it to be up all year, or just
Summer, summer of this year.
going into the September annual welcoming of new members? Where will it be? Sign?
I'm not sure how many there are or where it will be, but I think we've got a few different locations. So I think we've got one as you come from Redbourne into Harpenden and on the 1081. And I think you could potentially, I think there's stuff in South Down as well you can do.
Okay.
How many boards?
It's 3.
this sits in exactly with what, and Vicky will vouch for this as well, what people have been talking about in the Art and Culture Forum, isn't it? That people finding places to advertise in and around Harpenden, and everybody's been very keen within the forum to sort of share details as to where you can put flyers and who might be interested in this. And one of the key missions that we had was what the objectives of the forum, and what it was unanimously voted for was better communication and better advertising and better ways to get people out there to get more members and then more interest, and then you know, one thing obviously leads to another. If you're a member of the Photographic Society, you might also be an artist. So then you might know someone from there who goes to there, and it all sort of flows from better communication. And this was one of the, I mean, to be fair to him, he didn't nobble me about this at all. He didn't even mention he put an application in.
This just seems. Did they come to our? Did the photographic?
Yeah.
They were there.
Being quite active, yeah.
I'm just wondering. It seems a bit random. These boards. Will it make that much difference? I don't know.
Well, they seem to be working for the banking hub, don't they?
Yeah.
It's got 35 people coming in every day. People obviously have found out about it somehow.
Yeah.
You know, I think, as far as I know, they pay to advertise occasionally in the forum.
Mhm.
But they are quite active in Harpenden. It's not like they've just suddenly emerged
Yeah,
from
I've seen them
nowhere.
quite regular at the arts festivals that we run. They've normally got a stall.
And the chap that took our photos when we were taken on as councillors in the room just here, that's where he worked.
So I've been on 30 years in marketing and advertising. The banking hub and the farmers market as examples are very different propositions because they are tapping into a need. So farmers market, it's a regular thing. It's, you know, it's just saying, remember, it's this weekend. The banking hub is tapping into a need because all the banks have gone and people go, oh, brilliant, I can now do this task here rather than there. Getting people to join a society in a very specific niche area is a very different proposition to putting a prompt up to say it's the farmers market this weekend or buy Christmas trees here, or we've now got a banking hub. And I'm not sure it's going to work.
I just wonder if it would be with the arts and culture, we're trying to, like, the website, I think is really good because then people they want, you want to fill your time, what shall I do? Or I want to do something more artistic, I'll go to the website and have a look what I could join. I can join pottery, photography. I don't think driving past a sign saying come and join photographic, I don't know where it's going to be, but it's going to make that much difference. But
I mean,
I
it's
agree.
a broadcast medium is outdoor. It's not a very niche targeted medium, so they'll be hitting everyone who comes in and out of Harpenden,
Yeah.
of which I don't know what the percentage is. So I've got no objection to them doing it.
But
I'm
isn't
just
that
not convinced it's the
One
right
of their
medium.
goals is to broaden the demographic from sort of retired people
Yeah,
to younger people and to the people at different stages of life. And a broadcast medium,
it does cover that. I'm not saying the audience isn't going to be there. I'm just not convinced it's going to work. It's going to result in. So the awareness will go up significantly because people will see it however many times a day across the summer. I'm just wondering whether if their aim is to generate subscriptions or participation, that's the best way of spending £550.
Yeah, it's like I
Definitely raise awareness, absolutely. But it might be that it's going to be complemented with visits to schools, for example, or
so
or leaflets.
if you're a media strategist, what would you, so let's say they had a budget of £500
Yeah.
by us or somebody else, and the goal, which I think is sensible, they want to grow and broaden their membership. What would your advice be?
I'd almost think put the money on this is
Social media.
yes on the website.
I go social media, I go Facebook and take it out from there, but they haven't got enough money to do that. So, like I said, I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just worried that it's not going to drive what they want, but it might be that it's going to be complemented with, you know, school visits or
Yeah.
moms groups or some moms net advertising or whatever it might be.
Well, they use that for the indoor bowls.
Do they?
They've had it up on the,
Did that work?
I don't know. I mean, I don't do indoor bowls.
Didn't work for you.
I mean, they've got 71 volunteers. I suppose that means members, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So,
The target is 100, they think. So they want to get another 29.
They're keen to get younger people involved. And another one of the headings that they chose, like the topics that they chose for us to support them with, was the links with schools and they called them uniform groups, didn't they? So the brownies and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah.
So that would again be something that they will be taking part in.
Yeah.
Well,
how's the scale been?
Sarah and Harriet and Faye are supporting 3 specific topics that everybody voted on. So communications, links with schools. Oh, what was the last one?
I can't remember.
There were 8 altogether, and they chose.
But I was a scout leader for a couple of years, and I'm sure the other
Oh, venues.
default groups will be the same. So you have like a weekly session with a bunch of kids, and you're always looking for things to do, particular things that are different. So I would have thought a photography session, learn how to take a photograph,
Yeah.
particularly in the summer months when it's light outside, would be a pretty good sort of
But
event.
they're not looking for that though. They're looking for members, aren't they? So they're not looking. They're not looking for you to go and talk to your brownie group, so your brownies can. They're looking for more people to walk through the door.
But aren't they wanting to inspire more people?
But that,
Into
yeah,
photography.
one follows another. Right?
Yeah, it's generating engagement, which is your next stage after awareness.
I always think it'd be best to put the signs up, sort of promoting going to the website and seeing what things do you want to do an artistic culture. But that's not going to work because that's not what they want. It's one particular group. So
I mean, the other thing is if the demographics are essentially older person, going for social media is not something that they naturally go for, is it? Just because they don't really, it's not something, they might do it a bit, but not.
So when there's different social media as well as sorry, Calvin.
After you.
No, I'm done.
No, I'm just thinking that I would look at it from the perspective that do we want the photography club to be have more members in Harpenden? If that statement is yes, then if they consider they need more money to put the boards so that they can have more idle money to do other things. And since they will put the side, because I think they are the people who running the organization, they must discuss all through what kind of method they should use to attract. If they consider that is a thing that they will do without our money, I think they will probably still consider to do it. But then if you give them the money to do it, they can use the rest of the remaining money they already have to do other things like social media and things like that. So I go back to my original decision-making point that if we think photography is good, then we vote okay, and then they can use the money. And I think, to be honest, I do think attracting young people, I agree with all of you that Instagram, so even Facebook is a bit of, it's only for our age. So they should consider using Instagram. But at the same time, we shouldn't exclude those more senior members. I think photography is something that my dad will like it, and I don't really like it now, but I will like it eventually, I think.
You've got time for it, haven't you?
yeah.
I mean, it's very cost efficient way of advertising. So your cost per 1,000 will be very low, and your frequency will be very high.
Mm-hmm.
So from getting eyeballs to it, it's very cost effective.
Mm.
How efficient it will be at response, is different.
I mean, it'd be useful if they told us how many additional members volunteers they got.
Yeah.
It'd be lovely to know, wouldn't it, at the end of it? Yeah.
Well,
And if they've got the banners, can they use them at any point? Can they take them with them, or are they fixed under the Harpenden?
No, they can be reused.
Well, then it's not just a summer thing.
It's almost like I still feel it. Advertise out on the common and then have your banners there because that'll be artistic people going around.
They do as well.
Yeah.
My only concern about it, so I hear all of those things, and I'm obviously you're far better to say about that than me, but is setting a precedent. So the gang show, for example, put a board up, and I don't know whether the council paid for that or whether they had that as part of their budget. So it would have gone on their ticket price. you know, if there's ever an advertisement for the EMC, not that I'm really bothered about them being able to afford it, but, you know, I wouldn't want it to look like this, you know, if you wanted a board up in Harpenden, you just go to the council and they will pay for it for you.
Right,
Mm.
yeah.
So maybe he would have to be discreet about where sponsorship was coming from.
I mean, the thing
From a
is,
funding perspective, though,
Hmm?
you could be discreet about the funding.
yeah, but I mean, other people will see you know, the advertising.
Yes.
And they'll go, well, we should do that,
That's
Yeah.
a good idea, yeah.
regardless of whether it's.
It's in the public domain right now because this, we're talking about it, it's on
Yeah.
YouTube, so. I'm not sensing a great groundswell of unbridled enthusiasm.
I think it's a good idea. I think we should support them. I think he's been very proactive with the forum. The local chap is very enthusiastic and he's trying to get young people involved, and I think all of those things are really positive.
Kirsty, what are your thoughts?
I'm very happy with it. I have a question on when does our budget get reset? Is it April?
April. There is a small amount, there is enough in the earmarked reserve
Yeah.
that we've got, so.
It's still 50 quid from there.
Borrow.
Pip, what are your thoughts?
I'd give it a go, really.
I'd like them to share the results.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really good.
We can certainly put that as a condition.
Yes,
Yeah.
just see, does it work? Because I just not sure it will work. That's why I'm a bit reticent about it. But
It will definitely raise awareness. of
if it
things.
raises awareness, and then also actually if we find that go, yeah, we've got our 30 new, we'll go, okay, it's actually something that does work. This is a way of showing clubs and stuff. I mean, I agree with you. It's like filling a need. Oh, yes, banking hub. Oh,
Yeah.
yes, arts on the common.
Yeah,
Fun.
it's an awareness, yeah.
Whereas that, you drive past and go, oh, that'd be nice.
Yeah.
Would you actually do anything about it?
Yeah.
That's micro. But if
Yeah.
we find out that, yeah, they're up to 100 members, that would be a really useful.
Or even 150. I mean, they really need to think about the design of it. Well, of course, a farmer's market, we know what that is.
Yes,
It knows what time it is, where it is.
It's a
You
trigger.
don't need to read
That's
the
so true.
detail. You know, banking hub, it's at part, you know,
Yeah,
council
so
offices.
true.
It's really simple. If they're going to be having, you know, come and join the photography society, lots and lots of words. It's just going to be wallpaper.
And also, and again, back to the farmers market where it is coming in on Redbourne Road. Those that, you know, it does remind you.
Yeah. So you really need a really simple URL,
Make your notes here, Dan.
really, or a QR code,
The web address.
really simple web address, or and a QR code that people could scan. You know, sit in traffic.
While they're
these
driving.
days. Well, look, that's into a big moment.
If you're
If
if you're coming in from the north on that Luton road, you've got plenty of time.
Exactly.
Yeah, you bet you can read all about it. No problem.
You're joined up in that queue.
You could start taking notice.
If they do give us the result of whether there's an impact or not, then if we get subsequent,
Yes.
Exactly.
then we'll know.
or want to use it ourselves.
Well, we can use it ourselves, but also we can say, no, it's not.
Exactly. It's a very good test case, isn't it? Okay, so Kelvin, just in summary.
Oh, yeah, I support because photography is for everybody. What they said is, I would like to support them to have more resources in promoting it.
Yeah.
For everybody.
Thank you. And Vicky?
Yeah, same, absolutely.
Very good, thank you. And just to clarify, so we're okay to support the full 550 application
Yeah, if you're gonna do it properly.
to start spending the parties and picnics fund. Fine, excellent. Okay,
Start
right, so.
now.
Okay, thank you, everyone. So all of those in favour of the £550 donation with the reporting to come back from the Photographic Society, please raise your hand. Lovely, thank you very much. Right, is there any other business before we finish? I would like to make one point, please. I read this last night. Took me a while. There's a lot of detail, and I can imagine you and the team put a lot of effort into this. So could you just say thank you, not just to yourself, but anyone else who contributed to this? I really appreciate the effort from the team. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Very good.